Welcome to another edition of Golden Gems with the. What are you doing?
I'm writing down my thoughts. What's up?
I said the video would start. I clicked. It was three, two, one. The thing played. You're supposed to be organized ahead of time, not writing down your thoughts as we started.
Whatever. I'm here. I wrote in my thoughts. Let's go. It's not that big of a deal.
You are never organized when we get ready to do something. The point is to be organized ahead of time and prepared. That's not what you do.
First of all, have several seats because you are always late. I mean, you are always late. Okay?
That's not effective communication.
Not at all.
And that's also not a reset. Welcome to another edition of Garrett Golden Gems with the Garretts, Marriage Edition.
Woohoo!
We're talking about communication in that context of a reset. You see, when she did something that reminded me of what she did, I held her to her past and I brought it up. Even though that there was a better way to approach that, I could have said something differently. But when I accused her of doing what she did before, it put her on the defensive. And whatever I was trying to accomplish, all I accomplished was starting a disagreement.
Communication requires you to set a tone. And whoever starts the tone, that's normally what you're going to get back. And we have to resist the urge to come out the gate with a harsh tone or a negative tone towards our spouse. We have to be careful that when we're expressing how we feel, we're using I statements instead of you statements.
And that's key when you communicate. You don't want to attack. You don't want to say what the person did before. Last time we talked about pressing a reset. That means in this scenario, I shouldn't look at her and say, you always, this is what you constantly do, because I'm still holding her to a past that she could have legitimately made strides to get past, but in one moment, there was something that may not have been what I wanted, and I immediately revert back. Communicating is important. A lot of people think they communicate well. Just because you talk, open your mouth and sounds come out, doesn't mean you communicated well. What's your goal when you say something to your spouse? What are you hoping to accomplish? Sometimes people can come across as being bullies in communication.
Woohoo!
The whole point is to get my spouse to do what I want.
Uh-oh, help
That's
us.
not how that works.
Manipulation.
You should want to come into agreement with your spouse. How can two walk together unless they be in agreement?
Teach, sir. And also, if you look back at our conversation when we were having that dispute, he was saying that I wasn't ready or prepared. And what I did was I brought up the fact that he's always late. Now, that had nothing to do with our topic of discussion at that moment. But you see how in my communication, I was listening to respond. So now we're in a battle and we're trying to be who's going to win this battle of communication. Communication between your spouse should not be a war or a battle.
Amen.
Communication between you and your spouse should be fluid. It should be, we're not listening to respond, but we're hearing what you have to say and we're receiving it. We're digesting it and then we are responding back. But it should not be just so that I can get my point across.
Absolutely. You always have to think about what is the goal when I bring up a problem or an issue or something that I'm unhappy about or just something I want to share. And this is key, especially with men. If you want, ladies, you want your husband to open up, you want him to talk more. When he opens up and he shares things, don't attack. Because that makes him feel like he can't have a safe space. He can't take his armor off when he's home. So he's constantly going to be guarded. And what does he do? When men are guarded, they don't talk. They don't open up. Everything's going to be surface. You may desire to have a connection that's deeper, but he may be considering that if he says something you don't like, you're going to jump on him and attack him. Men need to have a space where they can come and take off the armor and know that it's safe. You have to create that in your communication, even when you're unhappy.
Also, you have to look at the atmosphere that's at play when you're about to communicate and what you're about to discuss. Because if he comes home and he's had a bad day at work or he just got into a dispute with someone, that's not a time for me to start debating about something that's a point of contention between us in our relationship.
Mhm.
Those moments are reserved for, like, sometimes our best conversations are on a day when neither one of us are busy and we wake up in the morning in bed and we just start having these deep, in-depth conversations. So you have to look at the timing of it. Don't be so anxious to get your point across that you get it across at the wrong time, and because of the timing of it, it's not received.
It's just the same thing as a blessing out of season. And God makes sure when He gives us something, it's when we're ready in season and it's time that we're in a position to receive it. When you communicate, your goal should always be get on the same page, express ideas, share dreams and visions to get something back that's fruitful. The foundation of your marriage should be communication. Again, some people talk, but they don't necessarily communicate. So that foundation isn't solid. And especially when a woman communicates at times and she feels like you're not going to pay attention, you're not going to reciprocate, she may take that into that she's not secure in it. Men are looking for safe spaces. Women look for security. All of that comes out in how you communicate. And if your communication is off, trust me, everything else is going to be off. It's like something in the car, the timing belt is off, that car is not going to run well. Doesn't matter how pretty it looks, doesn't matter how much you wash it, doesn't matter how much you clean the interior. It's not going to run well, and that's the entire point of the car.
Communication requires two people. It's not a one-way street. It's a two-way street. And it requires both to be able to express how they feel. We don't always agree, but we come into agreement. Communicating doesn't mean you start off agreeing. But communication means that if we don't agree, we come into agreement with whatever is the best path forward. And sometimes that requires discussion, that requires reasoning together. So don't get frustrated in the reasoning. Just take time to open up and be honest.
Always seek to understand, not just be understood. And don't shut your spouse down just because you may disagree with an idea they may have. Get the backstory on it. Ask them to explain it a bit more. Why do they think that's best? Come together. You can't walk together unless you're going to come together. And there are a lot of people who their marriage, they get along great in the bedroom,
Ooh.
not so much in the living room. Communication is a big part of that. So when you're pressing your reset for 2022, reset your communication. Don't attack. Don't use you statements. Don't bring up the past. Listen to understand, not respond. And watch how your spouse will open up. It'll be like a flower that blossoms. They'll share new ideas with you, things that you may have never thought they dreamed about, because now they feel safe sharing it.
Amen.
Well, that's all we have for you today. Thank you for allowing us to invade your space once again for another edition of Golden Gems with the Garretts. We'll see you next time.